Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, where we're finally having a proper February. And I've got my good friend Sean Gonsalves on, who shoveled snow this year for the first time in quite some time. Welcome back, Sean.
Oh, good to be back, man. I'm glad my back survived it. I took it easy. I did it at a nice pace. Took me about an hour. Needed that cold, crisp air to deal with this.
Was it good snowball snow like they're getting in DC, I imagine?
Yeah, it depends by a good snowball. Do you mean like one that will form and you can really throw? Yes.
Yeah.
To get hit in the face with one that's kind of on the heavier side? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk about snow this whole time, but I mean, we're getting some snow up here when it's like 5 degrees, and it comes down. It's like a magnet with opposite with the same poles because like it won't stick together. Like you throw it at someone, it's like confetti, just comes all apart. There's no water in it.
That takes all the fun out of it for sure. The most snow that we've got probably in the past few years. So, and it wasn't much. It was only about 5 inches, but
It's a good amount on the Cape. It's enough to for the kids to have a day off, I hope.
I needed it, man, to deal with my what I think a lot of us are dealing with, which is cognitive whiplash. You know what I mean? Like I needed to.
Man, it is hard. I mean, we're not going to talk about the politics here, but just to know what's happening without being able to just to better understand whether we agree or disagree. Just like like is our checks being written for these programs or not? And it's hard. It's mind-boggling. But I do have some good news. California, at this point now, when the California Public Utility Commission, they had that this big program for funding internet access across the state. We've talked before about how they really prioritize community builds and builds that were not just from the people that have refused to invest historically, those big companies. All of the tribes that applied have now been funded, and so that's exciting.
I'm super excited about that. As a matter of fact, by the time this podcast aired, Jessica will let the story. She's got an excellent story on the CPUC program in general, but more specifically, one of the tribes, Cold Springs Ranchera, were one of the recent grant recipients, and so. But the story's excellent, so people should definitely check that story out because I've got to say that the CPUC has been a pleasant surprise to me, and maybe I'm just was so cynical at the start that I just thought AT&T was going to get like all the money, and man, they've community broadband and tribal broadband has made out pretty well, all things considered, in California.
Yes, yeah, I think, and now we'll see them make a real big difference, I think. And one of the things that I think is kind of fun is we haven't announced it anywhere, but they might be looking for that at communitynetworks.org rather than communitynets.org or communitynetworks.org.
That's
We
right.
can't go more than a few years without changing our name, apparently. What's going on there?
We I was going to say we won the jackpot, but actually
We got a domain name. Someone came to us, we cut a deal, and we have
exactly.
communitynetworks.org now. So that's pretty exciting.
Right. That's why I say when I was going to say we won the jackpot in the sense that we have the domain name now, but it's not a true jackpot in the sense that it did cost us to play.
Yes, so we're excited. We're going to be making that change soon. I don't know exactly. We might, back up to it a little bit and then have to come back and fix a few things. But at some point, all the old domains will still work, but we will be settled in firmly, I think, to communitynetworks.org, which is awesome. Okay. We're going to talk today about fiber optic sensing briefly, something that came up on Connect This, as well as the dollars and cents in fiber optic investments from BEAD, talking a little bit about what's going on there. And we're going to preview an event that you are running with Ms. Gigi Sohn on financing municipal networks. So
Right.
I wanted to just put you on the hot seat. Fiber optic sensing. I think you probably hadn't heard of it. As a few months ago, I had never heard of it. For people who are out there and haven't yet watched this wonderful segment on the most engaging video show that one could ever imagine on broadband policy and tech, what did you take away from fiber optic sensing on Connect This?
Two words. The first one is wow. The second word is but what does that mean for the city? Is it potentially scary? So those were the two things that came to mind, mostly the wow.
So what is it? Tell the audience what it is.
So when I first heard remind me his name. That was
Paul Dickinson from Duraline.
Paul Dickinson, yes. And so he was essentially making the case for why we shouldn't be thinking about fiber optics infrastructure in communities as being just about connecting people to the internet. That there's all this other functionality that can be had, making essentially like a smart city, that can do a lot of sensing through sound and can give you a lot of really good data that city managers and town managers it would be real beneficial. Like, oh man, there's a little leak and we found out about it before it turned into like an underground lake and it was this huge problem and we're able to fix it and save a lot of money. And there's all kinds of functionality that can happen as a result of using fiber optics and using it to get sound information, I guess, right? Literal sound information.
Yeah, vibrations. And so this is the thing, right? When people talk about fiber optics in smart cities, they're usually talking about something. If I'm just going to rattle off a few numbers, which may or may not be in the ballpark, but I think these are roughly in the ballpark, you're going to be putting in fiber to a location. You're going to be paying someone to terminate that fiber in a pedestal, which is then vulnerable to cars hitting it. You're going to have an electrician come along and set it up to get power so that you can then run an induction loop underneath the traffic light signal to know when a car comes and is moving over to do a car count. You're going to be paying the electricity costs and the upkeep costs on all that sort of stuff. That's what people think of as like smart city. You're going to be running a pollution monitor somewhere. This fiber optic sensing is you're running a bunch of fiber from point A to point B. You make sure you put it underneath the road or close to it, and or next to a pipeline or next to a water system with the tubing underground pipes, water pipes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to make it more complicated than it is. You put in this fiber in, and maybe you put 144 fibers in, maybe you put a lot more in. You take one of those fibers and you hook it up to this like sensitive equipment, and it's listening for vibrations, and it can tell you, are there cars, like how many cars are moving over this given spot. It can tell you if a car is like waiting at the traffic light. It can tell you if someone's starting to dig right around that area, and hopefully you get someone driving over there real quick to find out, to make sure they're not messing around illegally, or that they are recklessly endangering the stuff underground.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of sensing that can be done. In fact, Matt Rantanen said in a conversation that it's been used to count animals like moving around, and I'm just like, come on, man! Like, are you just making this up?
Wow.
Yeah, like the vibrations. I mean, like I've been rewatching Daredevil that was originally on Netflix, and
Right.
yeah,
That's what I'm
like you
thinking
could
of.
tell a lot with vibrations apparently.
Or like, how you hear about, I don't know if it's dolphins or whales and how they can hear for like miles away and sonar,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. In a sci-fi like utopia fantasy future, could you imagine like a city with infrastructure where essentially there was like fiber in like everything?
I mean, the thing is that that's the thing, right? We think about fiber as being expensive, but you want to know how much it costs to run a smart transportation system across the Cape, like so that you have like you're timing your traffic signals well, and to actually know how many where cars are, so you can change the lights accordingly to make sure that you got the left turn lane. I'll tell you, by the way, red turn arrows are the bane of my existence. Like nothing causes me to lose my temper. Like I'm back in 12th grade. Like like one of those. But like being able to detect where cars are so you can more intelligently move traffic, save fuel, have less pollution and everything. Like, and not only that, but like doing it via fiber optic cables that are going to be underground anyway, saving that money of like those pedestals, those sensors, the electricians to set it all up. Like, I mean, it's actually it's a remarkable savings for more opportunities.
Yeah. And so that whole discussion, this whole world of possibility. And more importantly, here's the thing, is that the reason I think this is important to think about if you are a town manager or a city manager is because it puts the thought in your head, or at least I think it is that don't just look at this as just about internet access. That's one very important facet of it, but there's all of these other things. And so when you start to look at it like that, to me, the value of having a town-wide, a citywide fiber optic network becomes a lot more attractive and valuable than if you look at it strictly in terms of internet access, as important as that is.
Yeah, no, we're going a little bit long on this segment. It wasn't supposed to be this interesting, and I hope that someone more than just the two of us think it's that interesting. But like when New York City put together this master internet plan, right? And they said New York City does not plan to become an ISP, but we want to get fiber all across the city to be able to enable private companies, nonprofits, individual buildings, whatever, to be able to like rapidly build their networks to connect whatever niche or group of people they want to connect. That was a great plan. One of the challenges is how do you pay for that when you're not going to be collecting very much revenue? Well,
Hmm.
suddenly, if you can do all of this sensing, if you can prevent water leaks, now, New York City, like you're leaking water, that's an issue. You're in Texas and you're leaking water. You're in Arizona, you're in California and you're leaking water. That's suddenly a big deal. I mean, this is something I talked about up in the high desert, up in Ammon, Idaho, talking with them. Water's serious business. And the ability to make sure you're not losing water is worth a lot. So suddenly, I think what's exciting about this from my perspective is that it may free up cities to make the kinds of investments that will enable more infrastructure, more competition, more investment without the cities having to get involved in the retail operations, which although I certainly think many cities can handle it, many of them don't want to. And
Hmm.
so it's more opportunity, I think, for more, more investment without having to lock people into an uncomfortable business model.
Great point.
All right, so we're going to talk about dollars and cents in BEAD. I think that was the title I think you put on my amazing writing. Uh,
Well, I was just going to say, yes, I admit to that because after all, it was written by one of our unknown interns by the name of Christopher Mitchell. I think the kid's got some promise though. If you look at the policy brief.
so this is one of those things that as there was this discussion about should BEAD be so focused on fiber, I felt like some of the discussion in the press and some of the people that will be making these decisions aren't familiar with the backstory of how BEAD is not the first time we're funding better internet access at these homes that are eligible. Right. I mean, like, we're not just talking about rural America in general. We're talking about homes who have already been the effective recipient of thousands of dollars for AT&T or CenturyLink or Verizon or someone to Windstream, Frontier, to be putting better internet access to them. Right. The Connect America Fund, we've talked about it in the past. It was $10 billion and it built connections that were obsolete before the very first connection was started. It was a poorly conceived of program and it was poorly run and it was a fiasco. And Congress, in enacting BEAD, was like, we're not going to do that again. And what's driving
Yeah.
me a little bit crazy is that the Trump administration's coming in and they're like, oh, yes, we are going to do it again.
So let me tell you my favorite parts of this brief. My favorite part is where you remind people, hey, remember this thing called the infrastructure law that created the BEAD program, where it says that Congress deliberately like wanted to prioritize fiber optic technology because of these past failures that you were just talking about, and not to make these repeated investments in like these in obsolete technologies. I mean, that's my favorite part of the brief because it's an important reminder that this wasn't NTIA just sort of flying off the handle. And like, this was literally part of the congressional intent, the law itself. And so,
Right. Like Alan Davidson wasn't sitting there one morning looking at his cereal being like, you know what? We should prioritize fiber. I'm convinced.
yes. But even laying that aside, you're making the case, I believe, in this brief. By the way, two of my other favorite things about the brief is that it's very concise and it's very straightforward.
Hey, we're not in North Korea. You don't got to keep buttering me up. I like that you
No,
like
I
mine.
no. This is I'm just telling you. This is why the brief is good. But here's the other banger that's in the brief is that it really gets right down to it, which is that. And I know you're going to laugh at me when I use this phrase about let's not be penny wise and pound foolish. Meaning, it might save money right now, but is it really a good bargain for the get the biggest bang of the buck if we're right back here in like 5 to 10 years?
No, it's the terrible bargain. And the thing that I feel like has been missed entirely that we talked about a little bit in the brief is that a transition now away from fiber toward whether it's terrestrial wireless or certainly low Earth orbit satellite wireless will mean that rural homes, rural families, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of people, will be getting an inferior technology and they will almost certainly be paying a higher price for it. Now, we don't know exactly what all BEAD is going to result in, but when we
Right.
look at what we see across rural America where fiber is being built, especially by the cooperatives, but often by others as well, the fiber is coming in and their families are being charged 60, 70, $80 for hundreds of megabits per second or a gigabit per second, somewhere
Hmm.
in that range. When we look at the range, obviously, if we look at Starlink, it's $120 a month,
Right.
and you're getting like 100 down, and like, in the area of like 100 down, 15, 20 up, depending, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how congestion is or what upgrades have happened. Over time, that will probably get better, but maybe not if it gets too congested. But we're talking about, and like this is one of those things, right? The word equity is super suspicious to people in Donald
Hmm.
Trump's orbit, but the point of BEAD was that rural areas should be having communications, have internet access that is similar to urban areas. And the Trump administration, which overwhelmingly had the support of these people in these rural areas, they're going to end up having to pay more and receiving a lot less if the Trump administration moves to other technologies. And
Hmm.
so then, I mean, like if you look at, we have this documented, and I pity the person that goes back and watches every episode of Connect This or our podcast or whatever to see how things have changed over time. But I've always said, look, I don't think you should be building 50 fiber out to a house where it costs $50,000, $100,000.
Well, I was just going to say that's another good thing about the brief is that as concise as it is, and as much as it makes the case a strong case for fiber being a priority, it also is very clear that there still needs to be a mix of technologies. That
Right.
this is that we're not saying it should be fiber. We're not going total like North Dakota broadband office where it's like every last address in this state should have fiber. It doesn't make that argument. It's saying, listen, like you're saying, if there's a super high cost location, yeah, well, in those cases, like of course there needs to be a mix of technology, but let's not, go so far in the other direction of this tech neutrality is the kind of the
It's just, it drives
phrase.
me crazy. It's not neutrality. Like it's just awful. And the idea that it's neutral, like it's ridiculous. Like they're specifically saying like we're going to water down the standards, right? It's the technology participation trophy program. But what kills me about it is like something that you and we've gone back and forth on this phrasing, but like people are talking about how this is a once in a lifetime program. I can tell you this right now, if they're gonna substitute wireless from space to millions of homes, it's not a once in a lifetime program. like
Right.
I'll tell you right now, I bet it'll be between 5 and 6 years from now. I should say like 5 to 7 years from now. I think it would be that soon that if this administration decides to just give the money to Elon and perhaps some terrestrial wireless folks, although I frankly think if you're going to skip to wireless, why would you go terrestrial wireless if you're so focused on the costs? You're probably going to end up doing mostly SpaceX or Kuiper or
Hmm.
one of those low Earth orbit because like there's no infrastructure to build anymore. It's just some launches. But the point is, if you put all the money into that, it's just going to be a few years until like the people from that area are saying this is not good enough. We are not getting economic development. This is insufficient, and we want the fiber that other people in rural areas of my state already have.
To say nothing with the probably not insignificant amount of people who will say, and by the way, I can't even afford it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that like it's not affordable. It's hard to imagine how it may become affordable, and it's super brittle. Like let's be clear, people think I'm loonier than I really am. Like I'm really, it's funny. Like on some things, like I'm really loony, right? Okay, like I'm gonna move north before I move south. Like I admit I'm fully in the minority of people, like because like I like cold temperatures. There's all kinds of weird things about me, but I think about this a lot, and no one thinks about it. Like the idea that like we should be served by a few thousand satellites and millions of people's communications in rural areas should be dependent on that. These are satellites that are vulnerable to like any number of bugs, solar flares, also flails if that's a thing. But like so natural disasters as well as if there's a significant war with any major power in the future, all them satellites are coming down.
Hmm.
like, and so like it's just brittle in ways that terrestrial fiber resolves so many more issues. The last thing I would say about this is in a recent meeting, Gary Bolton was talking about how there's a major data center going into Northeast Louisiana. Northeast Louisiana needs investment. It's a very low income, high poverty area,
Hmm.
and because fiber is going in there to connect people, there's now fiber and it's in a more attractive area for business data center and things like that. It's not going to change the region overnight, but like it creates more opportunity for economic development. And nobody is looking around saying, oh, I'm going to put this data center in this field of West Virginia because SpaceX is going to be going over it X
That's
number of
right.
times per hour. You know,
That's
it's
right.
not a thing that happens.
And for those that are trying to follow along at home, Gary Bolton is the president of the Fiber Broadband Association.
I didn't say that, did I? I was in my head. I said it. Is that not good enough now?
No, 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 no. Gary is a star.
All right. So anyway, we did that. You can find it on community nets. You can find it on our fact sheets pages on at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, ilsr.org, as well as our site communitynetworks.org or communitynets.org. Both will get you to the same spot. Oh, and one other thing that I did want to share is just that a reminder that the reason that BEAD didn't get very far in the past 3 years and is still being rolled out now is because the Federal Communications Commission does not take its job seriously and did not know where broadband is and has not still in the year 2025 still can't point with any degree of accuracy. I mean, if I was to say to Commissioner Carr, who's been on the commission for many years now, hey man, I'll bet you $100,000. We'll pick a house at random and you tell me if you want to bet $100,000 if it's really served the way that it's claimed in the database, and we'll see what he says.
I'm glad you brought that up because I can't believe that I haven't already brought that up because one of my biggest left the biggest bone in my craw on this whole debate about how beat is taking so long is it's like, yeah, like no one ever talks about why it's taken so long. It's almost like it's said like, and then people will laugh and make it sound like, oh, like a cynical, oh, government is all they're always messing stuff up and taking too long, and what was the Biden administration, all this other stuff and everything, and it's like, yeah, what was the FCC doing? How come it took so long? Because those maps were terrible and they're still not that good. And do we really want to be spending tens of billions of dollars when we don't have a precise picture about where those dollars should be best
But this
invested?
is this is why we don't have good maps, because it has been a Republican priority to discourage government investment in this. And they correctly recognized if we didn't have good maps, we wouldn't be able to have spend money accurately. And so, like, I mean, if you look back, Democrats did not cover themselves in glory. It hasn't been a priority for them to have good
Mm-hmm.
maps, but it has been a Republican priority to stop us from having accurate data on this. And it just drives me crazy because it shouldn't be a matter of party issue as to whether or not you think the government should have important, accurate statistics. If you believe in markets, we need information on which to make investments. And that information, according to Adam Smith, who knew a thing or two about markets, like this should be broadly available in order to have efficient markets. And so it has not been a priority. And in fact, they've made it a priority to not do it. So anyway, like I think we both wanted to hit on that. Before we
Yeah.
run out of time here,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? I think you're a trader. You're moving away from our organization. You're trying to help out the AAPB. What is that, and what are you doing over there?
Oh boy, yeah, the AAPB. We love the folks over there. The American Association for Public Broadband. So that's Gigi Sohn's. She's the now the I shouldn't say now because she's been now for what 2 years almost. The executive director, a year and a half or so. We are getting together and hosting a webinar, the first joint webinar that we're hosting. It'll be February 20th, so probably a couple of days after this podcast is published, from noon to 1 p.m. It is free, but it is geared towards a particular set of folks. Those people out there who are seriously considering pursuing a municipal broadband solution for their communities, or who are sort of on the fence but aren't quite sure, well, how can we make it work financially? This webinar is for folks that have that question. And so as part of that, we're going to be talking to, I guess you could call them panelists, although it'll be very much structured around a conversation with Ernie Staton from Fairlawn Gig.
This is not one of these like, yawn fests. This is
Right.
going to be, moving quick, interesting.
Exactly. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of municipal finance with Ernie Statton from Fair Lawn Gig, a city that's gone through and financed the network and has a very successful municipal broadband operation now. FX Flynn, who is the governing board chair with EC Fiber, the first communication union district in Vermont. And then we've got Laura Lewis, who's the principal and co-owner of LRB Public Finance Advisors, and Eric Rex, the vice president at Key Bank. Both of those last two are people who have been involved in putting together the financing for some of these projects. And so for communities like a Falmouth, which is not far from me, who has been wanting to build a municipal broadband network, it's been stop and go with talking with some private companies, et cetera. Those type of folks, I think, will be very interested in learning and hearing from people who have done it, how they did it, and what are some of the challenges and ways to think about doing it, especially now, given the uncertainty of BEAD, which, by the way, most of that money wasn't going to a lot of these, urban and suburban communities anyway. However, these things can happen without recourse to a program like BEAD per se. And so this is what that particular webinar is going to focus on. So I'm really excited about that. Gigi and I are going to serve as co-hosts, but it's really going to be about folks being able to interact and talk to people who have actually done it and are doing it.
And it's the first of more to come. It'll be archived. Right. We're doing it on the same platform we do Building for Digital Equity and Connect This and all that. So it'll be on YouTube. And yeah, a lot going on out there.
A lot going on.
Well, thank you, Sean. Appreciate your time today.
Yes. Always good to be here.
And we'll see you at the webinar. We'll see you in the future.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at communitynets.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@communitynets.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Blue Sky. His handle is @SportShotChris. Follow communitynets.org stories on Blue Sky. The handle's @CommunityNets. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons.